All right, everyone, we've got an example here of a very good suggestion that is completely politically motivated. We're going to try to parse this apart and explain. Donald Trump the other day came out on Saturday and called for the modification of the 25th Amendment. Currently, it's about, the removal of the president for incapacity, basically. To modify it and to say if the vice president engages in some sort of cover-up to cover for the fact that a president has been incapacitated, that they should also be able to be removed from office. I agree with this 100%. Now, on the surface, it's completely politically motivated. This is a hit on Joe Biden. You'll notice that Biden hasn't been out in public very much lately, and the legacy media never wants to talk to him. They'd rather focus on other things. I wonder why. Could it be the fact that everyone knows that he's been mentally incapacitated for an excessive period of time and that there was a cover-up involved? Yeah, that's the purpose of what Trump is saying here. But it's still a good idea. Let me make a pitch to the liberals, for example, the dozens of liberals that lurk on the channel in order to simply downvote videos, who probably have mostly tuned out by now anyway. Let's say that Donald Trump is re-elected. And let's say that he has a massive stroke and he ends up Woodrow Wilson mode and is incapable of actually carrying out the duties of office. And J.D. Vance, comes out to the public and says, no, he's perfectly fine. He's just, he's taking a lid day or something like that. You would want them both removed from office, now wouldn't you? Potentially get a Democratic president through this means. It would make sense, too. If the president is incapacitated, they shouldn't be the president of the United States. The office is too important. Diplomatically, carrying the nuclear football, the veto power, all of these other things that a president can do, it's far too important of an office for anyone, Republican or Democrat, by the way, to be able to be in that office while being effectively incapable of doing their job. Because the people didn't vote for the vice president of the United States, they voted for the president of the United States. And the people should have their will. Now, in some cases, they might not have a problem with this. For example, let's say Trump is incapacitated in his second term, which he's likely to get. I think that J.D. Vance would be capable of carrying out the duties of office. But if he refused to acknowledge to the public the fact that the president was incapacitated and he was carrying out those duties, of course that should be impeachable. Of course he should be removed from that position. I would go even further than Donald Trump is suggesting. I would say that any cabinet member or any upper official that's involved in such a cover-up should also be removed from their position. The president staggers in. He can barely walk. He can't really tell you, rack 'em, shack 'em, chocolate ice cream, or something like that. And military brass is there, the generals, and they're like, Commander-in-Chief, Mr. President, I didn't quite get that. Well, pink mouse, wine, I don't know, it's a good day. Then they should also be removed from their positions if they're not willing to come clean about the fact that the commander-in-chief, the chief diplomat of the United States, wielding veto power, able to appoint Supreme Court justices and federal officials and oversee things at the executive level, of course they should be removed. Members of Congress, the president goes in to talk to some of his buddies in the Senate. Or his or her buddies in the Senate. We're not quite sure yet. I'm hoping it's a his for the next 4 years. And he's like, well, did you see this book that I just read? Have you ever heard of Hop on Pop? It's pretty good. Or something like that. Something insane, something zany. I forget. Where am I exactly? Oh, you're senators, right? Aren't you... Does that make you members of Congress, or are you on the judiciary? I can't remember. If the president is clearly out to lunch, anyone covering for the president should be culpable as well. The position is simply too important for the people to not be able to have some recourse with regards to this issue. The president goes before his meeting, again, rack 'em, shack 'em. I love that line, by the way. It's from the completely screwed over dub of the Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. Rack'em shack'em, look at this painting. Some of you get the reference. Anyway, if they're completely out to lunch and someone's covering for them, yeah, they should be culpable. I agree completely. And by the way, Trump expects to be reelected. He's actually getting himself into a position here where he's saying, hey, modify the 25th so that if I get incapacitated, J.D. Vance can't cover for me, and has to acknowledge to the people, yeah, the president's basically bedridden right now. He doesn't even know where he is. It's clearly a swipe at Biden, but it's still a good idea. It would be good for our civic structure if that accountability existed. Again, I would go further. At the very least, cabinet members, Secretary of State, things like that, if they become aware that the chief executive is not capable of doing their duties, or isn't doing their duties because of that incapability. Cognitive decline, they've had some sort of medical crises, they fell down and broke their hip, now they're bedridden, and they broke their arm and they can't sign paperwork or something like that. They have to have their spouse do it, or something like that. Absolutely, they should be held culpable for that. It's a no-brainer. It wouldn't just apply to Democratic administrations. I mean, it's ex post facto at this point anyway. There's only a couple of months left in the Biden administration anyway. Regardless of who gets elected, it's not going to be Biden who's in office in a few months. So while it's a swipe at Biden, it's also a sensible proposal. The idea is simply accountability. Hey, I voted for this individual. They became commander-in-chief. But if they're incapable of commanding, if they're not capable of mustering the militia and doing all of these other things, they can't sign the veto because, their arm won't move because they had a massive stroke or something. Absolutely, I should be made aware as a member of the public, as a citizen of the United States, yeah, this dude or this dudette is completely fucked up. There's something terribly wrong and other people, the shadow government has taken command, basically. I think they already have, by the way, under the Biden administration. Do you really think that he makes his own decisions? I don't think so. I don't even think that he can choose what he eats every night. I think that other people have to choose it for him. Mr. President, tonight we're having some rice pilaf and a nice steak. We'll cut it up really small for you so you don't choke to death. Because we know you've got dentures probably too, or tooth implants or something like that. We're not exactly sure. But when the president is out to lunch, like Trump is an older dude too. And Trump is the one proposing this. He's on the older side. He's in his late 70s. When he leaves office, if he gets a second term, I think he'll be 82 or something like that. He could become incapacitated during his presidency. He could have a heart attack. He could have a stroke. He could fall down and break a hip. He could have any number of things happen. He's elderly. While he's in better shape than the average person his age, and certainly much more cognitively fit than Joe Biden, it makes sense to have that accountability. So I stand in strong favor of Trump's proposal. I think that it's a grand idea. That's about all. Peace out.